Hey everybody, Eric Dorward here with the Spartan Rocketry Club, and we are going to finish up our Estes Antar today, hopefully. So I've got my various finishing things here. Here is what we are looking like after going through the whole painting process. Now, this took a lot of tape to mask off, as you can imagine. The green that I found wasn't quite the right green that I wanted. Fortunately, the silvery part in the middle turned out pretty well, but I do have some kind of inexplicable scratches that ended up in my paint job here, and a couple of little like dings. I don't know where they came from, honestly. It's not anything the paint did, and I'm pretty sure I didn't do it either. So, kind of a question mark, but hey, whatever. It turned out reasonably well. The other thing worth noting that there's supposed to be some green, according to the picture, right along here and on the other side as well. And the exterior of this is also supposed to be green. I I didn't even try, frankly. I mean, I can brush it on if I really, really want to. I have some enamel paint that would probably do the trick, but yeah, I couldn't figure out a decent way to make a bit of green right around along the edge for a variety of reasons, mostly because of how narrow it is and this piece being in the way. I probably could have pulled it off if it weren't for the little triangle bits. Anyway, so the paint job is done, so that means it's finishing time. I have the decals all trimmed and ready to go, but before that, we're going to do the usual business with the parachute and the shock cord. Now, between this video and actually flying, I need to put a clear coat on. So this will not be the end. The shock cord anchor mount goes the same as usual. Cut out the little diagram, put some glue in between, and that's our first fold. And then we're going to put some more lines of glue on section 3. It should be fine. Fold it over again, and there we go. Smoothing it out as best as I can. So that's basically taken care of. This, of course, needs to be glued inside the rocket. I'm going to let that dry at least for the next few minutes before I attach it. There's plenty of other stuff to do as well. Next, I've got my parachute. As a rule, I like to use these fishing barrel swivels to allow the parachute to spin independently of the rocket as it's coming down. I'm starting to run low on these. This is about the right size that I like to use, kind of middle of the line one. I bought these initially, and yeah, you can get an Estes parachute through an eye that it is that small, but it is not easy and not fun. And I have a bunch of these larger ones. I use them mostly for heavier rockets. I can go with the mid-grade one for this parachute. So there's the anchor, or the barrel swivel. Here's the parachute. And what do we do with it? Well, gather up all the shroud lines here. Oops, dropped one. So I've got all my shroud lines. I'm going to pull them taut, not for like any final attachment or anything, but I just want to make a narrow loop there so I can fit that through the eye of the barrel, like so. And once it's through, I'll kind of separate them. And then all you need to do is push the barrel up through the loop you made and then pull it tight. That'll get anchored into the nose. I'm not going to attach this until after I put the clear coat on. The less stuff in the rocket during the clear coat, the better. I mean, it'll fit. It won't be an issue, but I'd like to avoid it. Now, decal time. Before I do the decals, one thing that's worth knowing is you should really be careful with the metallic paint and clear coating. So this rocket is using a different kind of clear metallic paint than I've used in the past. I have a couple examples of why you shouldn't use clear coat on top of metallic paint. It's mostly in the gold metallic paint that I bought, but the clear coat melted it. It just like liquefied it, and then it ran down the rocket, and it turned what was a pretty well made rocket into like an oozy mess. And yeah, so if you're wise, you should really test those two things together before you do anything else, because you might end up ruining everything at the very last conceivable stage, which would be very irritating. Anyway, let's do the nose cone first. I'm obviously not going to do all the decals. Here are the decals. There are a lot of them. It's probably going to take me half an hour or so to do all these, and you probably don't want to watch that. Here is a little custard cup full of what used to be hot water. It's cooled off a little bit as I've yammered, and a paper towel, which I'm going to use as blot. Now, figure out where all the stuff goes in this. You really need the instructions, which I have right here. The same thing that told me what colors to paint everything is pretty detailed as to what's going to go where. So the nose cone, I need this little kind of reddish wrap that's going to cover up the interface between the silver and the white. And then I need some square looking ones and a whole bunch of dots. So I think that's probably about as much as I'm going to show in the video, because you really don't need to watch it all. So I'm going to start with the loopy part that's going to cover up this little interface here. And, it wasn't bad when looking at my paint job. It's not perfect, and a little bit is not particularly smooth. But remember, if I really, really wanted this perfectly straight, I would have spent more time on it. But given that I knew I was going to be covering up the interface with the decal, I didn't care all that much. So hot water, or warm water at least, to loosen the water slide decal. Use your fingers. Once it starts sliding like that, you're good to go. I'm going to move this a little bit. I'm going to start, just because it's probably easy, I'm going to start where the seam of this nose cone in the plastic is. I'm going to kind of try to hold it anyway with my fingers, so that just a little bit of it is covering the silver. And then I'm going to kind of spin and pull the backing off as I go. And it overlaps a good amount. That's fine, because remember, I didn't measure this, so this is kind of an eyeball. But it looks like it's pretty good there. I'm going to blot it and kind of brush it in the same direction to make sure all the air's out. And it's as simple as that. All right. The other things, and again, I'm referring to the instructions to figure out what goes on here. I need to find these two white boxes, and they're going to go in. They're going to go near the bottom, and as it turns out, it doesn't. Now, it looks like, actually, now that I'm looking at it, it looks like one of them is going to go on the nose cone part itself, and the other is going to go on the rocket body, right about here. So we'll put one on the top and one on the bottom. It doesn't really matter where on the nose cone it goes, but I think I'm going to do it. So there's two seams. There's a pretty hard seam, and then there's a slightly smoother. Well, actually, they're both pretty bad. I'm going to put it right in the middle, so that way I don't have it overlapping against anything. I'm going to do my best to eyeball it. It doesn't really matter, but there's a seam right there I'm going to use to kind of let me know if I've done this accurately. And it's not really straight. But the good news about this is it's a rectangle. And since it's a rectangle and the edge here is a straight line, I can check and see just by eyeballing it if they're parallel. And they look to be pretty parallel at this point. Again, I'm going to make sure I brush out any air bubbles that I've left, and then try not to jostle anything. Like up here, I've bumped the top a little bit. That's annoying. All right, that's good. The other one I need to do is a box that has a dot in it. By the way, obviously I didn't do this on camera, but I cut each one of these out. The instructions suggest, what does it say exactly? It says cut decals from sheet, trimming close to edge. The pictures with these sometimes show you using an X-Acto knife to cut them out. I have tried that in the past. There's some times when I feel it's necessary, but by and large, I'm not that great with an X-Acto knife. I'm much better with scissors, so I just use a pair of pretty sharp scissors to do the trick. Okay, so that's soaked long enough, one would hope. There we go. And I'm going to try to get it in line here with the midline of the box I already put on. So it should look something like that. Although it should be straight, which what I put on was not straight. Okay. Now the good news about water slide decals is they're not like stickers, so you get a chance to reposition them until you really dry them out. Like this, I'm not really thrilled about. It doesn't look like it's as straight as it could be. I could, at this point, probably get it wet enough so that it will come off, but honestly, I don't think I want to mess with it. It's probably not worth the trouble. Now, as I mentioned, I'm not going to take the time to put all the decals on camera, but here's a really fun one. So, in looking at the decal and the instructions here, there are a bunch of little dots in the upper part of the nose cone. These are the little dots. They are very small. I did not trim them particularly closely because honestly, it's going to be a royal pain to position these with as much extra backing as there is on them. So yeah, this isn't going to be fun. I'm going to just snip them like so and try to get it right in the water. There we go. Just one at a time. Yeah, so it looks like they look like totally haphazardly placed kind of on this. So I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I want to say there's 7 dots here. I've got more than that. I guess I have 12. So I'm not going to position all these either. That would be uninteresting cinema, to say the least. But yeah, again, I'm just going to try to get the pattern generally right. And these are so small that the best I can hope to do here is just kind of peel the backing off in my hand and then kind of hope. Yeah, the good news is you can maneuver them a little bit. Since they're circles, it doesn't really matter how they're oriented, and that looks pretty good. You probably can't see it, but the square itself that I cut out is very much at about a 45-degree angle to everything. But you can't see that, so that's great. We can live with that. Yeah, and since the backing is clear, unless you're really looking, you probably won't see. Get that lined up at a nice 90-degree angle with everything. But again, who cares? It's clear, and I can't see it. So in any event, I think I'll do a couple more of these just for emphasis, and then we'll put the shock cord into the rocket body, and that'll probably be good enough for this video. The final steps, of course, that you're not going to see on here are clear coating everything once all the decals are on. And do go very light on the clear coat. You don't need much. It's there, basically it's there to protect the decals more than anything else. If you're applying it to give your rocket like a glossy coat, you probably could and should have done that with glossy paint to begin with, rather than trying to put a very shiny clear coat on. So I go very light on the clear coat just to protect the decals. I do have a very nice rocket that I'm particularly proud of that did have the older kind of silver paint that I was using that I warned you about melting with the clear coat. So I clear coated kind of the bottom half of it that was painted white, and the top half of it has silver on it. So I didn't get the clear coat anywhere near that. And unfortunately, where there's a decal right at the top of where the nose cone and the rocket body interface, and the decal has gotten a little chewed up over the years because of the action of the ejection. If I had been able to clear coat it, that probably would not have been a problem. And I'm going to eventually have to kind of redo the decal. It's best I can. All right. Oops, it didn't come off because it's pretty well stuck to my finger. Oh, these tiny decals. Yeah, this is about the smallest decal that I think I've done recently. And you know what we'll do here? We'll use the X-Acto blade pointed away from me, of course, because I'm not interested in cutting myself or anyone else with it. Yeah, and I've gotten it kind of twisted. It's folded over on itself, so I'm going to try to use the X-Acto blade to unfold it as well without cutting things. So I'm going to try to keep my finger down on the clear part, and there we go, and then unfold it. Now I just need to push it back to where it belongs, which is approximately, what, here? It looks pretty balanced. So that's what it's going to be like to do the remaining dots. It's going to be tedious and potentially involve the X-Acto knife to extricate problems that I've made for myself. All right, so I'm going to do the rest of this later. You don't need to watch that. The water's cold anyway, so it needs to be refreshed. Depending on how complicated the decals, like these big ones, I should be able to move them onto the rocket pretty quickly. I could probably get a lot of the big ones on together, but these little ones take a lot of effort. So I might only get like 4 or 5 done. Anyway, last thing we're going to do here is we're going to attach the shock cord out inside the rocket. So there's my glue. Stand up to do this. That way I'm looking down the barrel. It doesn't really matter, which side the anchor goes into, but usually most people tend to put it in line with it. The engine hook, I'm not entirely sure if there's any benefit to that. I don't know. I kind of doubt it. But anyway, I'm going to put it in, push it in as far as I can get with my index finger, and then push it up against the body tube, pushing as hard as I can to make sure that it is flat as possible. Same deal here. My middle finger is bigger, so fortunately you can't see me just using my middle finger, and that seems pretty good. All right, so that needs to dry. This needs to be attached to the nose cone once the decal work is all done. The parachute needs to be attached, and then a clear coat for everything. And that's the end. That was a good build. I enjoyed that one. Painting is not really my favorite thing, and it takes forever, but it does make for a good-looking rocket if you do a passable job on it. Anyway, that ends this segment. We'll see what's in my box of rockets to build next. Looking forward to that. See you another time.